what's up, everyone? It's Michael Boothby with Lovewise Media, and I'm here today with Mythology, talking about their latest album, The Story of Sound. So, guys, Mythology, what's up? How are you guys doing?
What's up, Mike? How are you?
How you doing? I'm doing,
Awesome.
personally, I'm doing great. Can't speak for these other guys, but I'm doing good, and
Yes.
thank you for having us on. This is really cool. I get to hold my microphone like Bob Barker,
I love it.
ever so slightly cusping it. And, yeah,
I love
thanks for
it.
having us.
You do know you could hold that however you want, right?
That's true. No one's stopping you.
No, keep being weird. Keep being weird, Brynen. I love this.
Yeah, it's
So-
kind of a stock and trade.
Guys, yeah. So let's talk about the story of sound, because you guys are a prog rock band in 2024, and I love that. I've been a big fan of progressive rock my whole life, especially just the blending of genres, right? So with the story of sound, you continue to blend genres like jazz, rock, metal. So I guess my first question for you guys is, how do you approach the fusion of these styles? And how has your sound evolved with this latest album compared to All the Planets Have Aligned, your last album?
Oh, well, I guess for me, as a writer slash composer, whatever you want to call it, variety has always been the spice of life. So, and most people don't just like one type of music. Like. And if someone says they only like one type of music, run away. You can't trust that person.
Yeah.
So most people like a mix of everything, and I'm no different. So I love rock, I love jazz, I love that weird fusion between the two. I like classical, I like electronic, and so for me, it's just kind of easy to fuse all those different genres together, as disparate as they may be. And then there was a part 2 to that, wasn't there? Okay, how has the sound evolved?
How has the sound evolved? Can you gain up your mic?
Sure.
Yeah, turn that up a little bit.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Much
That's good.
better.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
that's great.
actually using my interface, so
Nice.
I got to. Okay. How the sound has evolved. So, I would say All the Planets Have Aligned was much more of like, like it sounded like a prog album from 1974,
Nice.
and
Yeah.
decidedly so. I think all of our previous records were kind of like that to some degree. Down to the mix and down to the way it was mastered, it just has that sort of analog, as Jordan would say, the analog sheen to it.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, in the digital age, this I think kind of takes it a couple decades later. Like this, to me, sounds like something like Spock's Beard would have done, like in the mid '90s. Just production-wise, I think we went from the '70s to the '90s while maintaining that progressive rock thumbprint to it all.
Sure. I love that. Just on that topic, like from the 70s to the 90s, I have to ask, like, who are your guys' kind of biggest influences?
You want to start, Jordan?
Feel free.
Well, I mean, for this band, for me, my biggest influences in music, because I play in a lot of different bands and a lot of different music, but for Mythology, for basic across the board, the Beatles are my biggest influence in life in general when it comes to just, living life, wearing clothes, taking drugs, everything.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a little bit of them in everything that I do. But I usually, for me on this record, I tend to go with Mythology. I tend to look towards specific performers as influences for the records. So for Planets, it was a lot of, I don't know, like Stuart Copeland and John Theodore is always a huge influence on me. He was always, so I was listening to certain things he was playing. But this album, John again, but also Nick Mason from Pink Floyd because so many things that we were doing reminded, at one point, Brynen was like, I need to think Pink Floyd on this section. I'm like, okay, put my Nick Mason hat on. So it's a lot of mix of like straight ahead prog stuff, but then like the Pink Floyd stuff that we like, and then like just jazzy fusion kind of stuff, kind of like even like John Densmore from the Doors, or people like that. But yeah, a lot of like I tend to go for different players for albums, and that's how I kind of addressed it. It was a lot of just focusing in on especially what Dave was doing, and just thinking about it with those hats on. That's how I kind of did it.
Yeah, I can hear all of that in the album, and just because I know earlier, Brynen, you were like part 2, and as I went through this album, I couldn't help but notice that there's Roman numerals. It seems to be four parts to the album. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's chunky.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just talking about that, like, exactly. Is there like a narrative thread that connects the tracks or themes that you're kind of exploring through this 4-act structure?
Yeah, so the whole record is done in 4 movements, hence the Roman numerals that prefix everything. So everything with the Roman numeral 1 is the first movement as a suite, and so on and so forth. But then within that, there's little detours and part 2s and reprises and all the things that all the kind of great things that make film great, I think. Where it's like, oh, that scene came back later on in the
Right.
but in a more aural sense. Yeah, and yes, there is a narrative that runs throughout the entire thing, which we're actually printing physical copies of the album on CD. Again, we're '90s kids, so we like our CDs.
I still buy CDs.
Yeah, no, I still
love
do too,
that.
because it's one of the best ways to support artists you like. Because it ain't streaming. But
Oh my
no, I mean
gosh,
that
yeah.
helps you in different ways, but
Sure.
algorithm wise. But yeah, the way you're going to get the complete story of sound is buying the physical copy with a nice thick booklet inside that has a libretto, basically a screenplay, with the dialogue and the actions and the settings and the scenes.
I love that. And Brynen, just what do you think is the story of sound? If you had to just just like in a few words.
Oh, geez. Taking a 70-minute prog record into three
Into a
words or
sentence.
less. It's this. No, it's a film, as Frank Zappa used to say, it's a film for your ears, and set to really intricate, complex arrangements, definitely shreddy at times, and it's for people that like to go on a journey with their music, I think. And I think that's what maybe sets it apart from the majority of perhaps records coming out today. And not to invalidate what's coming out today, but this is an alternative to that, I would say.
It's
The immersive experience.
It's definitely more of a meal and less of a snack.
It is.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah, I want to go into that more, the composition. Your work's been described as a blend of strict composition and open improvisation. So can you just take us through how a song typically evolves, from a concept to completion in your band, with navigating both of those kind of modalities?
Okay. Yeah, I guess the MO has always been I'll plant the seeds. And it was a lot more primitive back in the day. Like, I just used to have to keep it all in my head and then verbally express it to whichever bandmates who I hereby apologize for that method now because that's probably not the greatest thing ever. But starting with Planets, I started demoing things out and saying, here, this is what's, because I finally got the tools in which to do so. The computer, the mic, all the recording gear, which, you know, I never had any money, you know, back then. So,
Right.
At least not for that. I was just trying to pay rent and eat, you know.
Sure.
So once I got all those tools, I did a lot more in the pre-production side of things and just demoing things out. You know, I always had the songs, I always had the licks, I always had the ideas, but this might have been the first time ever that I demoed out the entire
whole thing, yeah,
from start
for
to
sure.
finish.
Wow.
You know, and some of the demos actually ended up on the final record because I was like, I don't think I can improve upon that, you know, what that is, you know. So there is the whole thing had a little bit of a DIY flavor to it.
Right.
And it's just kind of knowing where in the song you have to, you know, do the written parts, and then knowing where it's a little more loose and perhaps expansive, and yeah, just kind of having like the good sense to yeah, just kind of know where the blank spots, quote unquote, in the composition are, and then filling in those gaps intuitively.
I seem to recall during one of the sessions, we were actively recording takes, and I do believe Brynen looked over at me and was like, "What if we do a bass thing there?"
Yeah.
like we like gun against the head. Sorry about that too. But you're literally under the microscope.
Yeah, right, of course.
On the spot. Sure, yeah, let's go. We're doing takes, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think that was Midnight Express.
I do believe. I think you're right.
Yeah, where there's like we're
Also-
trading guitar and bass solos, like little fills here and there, and yeah.
That happened a lot, though, man. Like, a lot more so than any of the other records we've done. Like, there was a lot of things that's the thing I think that really set this one apart, too, is that there was so much interplay between the three of us in studio. And, like, a few of the tracks, like I said, were born in studio. Like, the interludes, some of the interludes and stuff, like, Dave did something, and he's like, keep going with that. And then it's like, oh, okay, that's going to be load screen 1. That's where the load screen came from. So, like...
Yeah, the concept of load screen, came from
like,
Dave.
As much as, like, the record was demoed out, there was also a lot of cool, happy accidents and cool dyssynergy within the recording process, which is why I think this is such a unique record, because it was kind of a mix of both things.
Yeah, and it has that pro studio thing, you know, like it sounds, you know, to me it sounds as
very
good as
big,
anything out there, but it also has a DIY sheen to it, because a lot of it was recorded exactly where I'm sitting right now.
Wow.
You know, so, and you know, just sent remotely to our friend and our friend foremost, and our engineer, producer, mixer Shane, over at Glower Studios. So I would send him like my files. He would dump them into the sessions and like work them in and try to get everything to glue together. You know, whether it was recorded here or at his place. Yeah, so
that's awesome.
That was interesting, you know, being able to record at home as well as a studio. I think like projects, because I have like dozens of projects out with this band and others, and it's like it's usually one or the other.
Yeah,
like you either go to the studio or you make a record at home, and that's it. You know, but this was kind of like a beautiful marriage between the two.
Hybrid approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
DIY pro.
Yeah.
I like that.
Actually, I would actually like to ask Dave, like what where did the idea for this guy kills me, the idea for load screen number 1 come from? Because you just kind of dropped that on us.
Yeah, you just started
it was
playing
not
it.
part of the original demo, but it was like, oh, cool, Dave came up with something, and it ended up on the final cut.
I'm trying to remember.
Because I actually never asked you that.
It probably came from Square Pusher.
Square Pusher, okay.
Probably, yeah. I think I remember like I was doing like a muted thumb thing, and it sounded, it was like more or less atonal, more or less arrhythmic, and then it ended up getting I think it ended up being in 5/4 or 7/4. I forget what.
Yeah,
It's
something
like
like that.
5 for sure.
Five.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. Ended up in 5. But yeah, I think when you sent me the demos and I was working on parts and stuff, I ended up playing that and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then when we went to go track, I just played it because it was on my mind, and that's when we kept playing it.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of little things like that in this record that just happen like that.
Yeah,
I tell you, it reminded me of like you remember like old Primus records where there would be like those interludes of
Yeah.
like, what the heck is happening here? Like an example would be like on Sailing the Seas of Cheese. There was like the Savington Waltz.
Right,
It's
okay.
just like this minute and a half of like curioso, like oddity, you know.
Y'all hear that, or is that just me?
yeah. I think that's your SM. I think your microphone's
Hello?
doing some. That's better. It did that. I heard it do that. It did that once earlier. I'm not sure what that is, but it's kind of like, yeah. I'm not sure.
Okay.
For our
So
listeners,
we're
at
still
home.
doing extemporaneous stuff live,
Yeah.
so we're always
I'll just-
improvising here.
But yeah,
I'll
so yeah, the Primus thing too. But to answer your question, I think the inspiration came from Square Pusher. Even though it's not like a quote or a lick or anything, I didn't lift it from him. But like, I think it's just like a sonic.
It makes sense to me.
One of his records.
Yeah, it does make sense to me, actually.
Hmm. I
Good
love
old Square
that.
Pusher.
Heck yeah, guys! So the album's been out for a little bit. How are the fans reacting to it?
And I've gotten some good praise for it. Via friends, family, and fans of the band. I think it's going to take a while for people to fully grasp the thing, but it's definitely been met with at least some praise. So that always makes me feel pretty good. So.
Yeah,
My brother
yeah.
liked
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, for me, it's interesting for me because a lot of the people I've talked to say they think it sounds very different than our last record, and I get that because it is. Also, too, like you said, they're just like, yeah, I'm making my way through it. I'm just like, I'm like, I get it. It's 70 minutes. The fact that you're listening is awesome. So yeah, a lot of, like Brynen says, it's going to take some time, and that's good. That's what we want because we want people to digest it. We don't want people just, oh, I listened to it, I don't remember anything from it. So yeah, take a month to listen to it. I think it deserves that attention, honestly. So there's enough there. So yeah, I will say that the thing that I've taken away with from the things that I've talked to about people is that they're like, wow, this is a very different sound for you guys, and that very big is what they're saying. So like that's the things that I've been hearing myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense that it sounds different because your last album, All the Planets Have Aligned, came out in 2018, and
Yeah,
that was 6 years ago. And it's like so much has happened in
Yeah.
that time,
what?
to expect
What?
your sound to stay the same. That's crazy.
Did something
yeah,
happen?
yeah.
The craziest thing happened.
Just the
Yeah.
craziest things.
I became a dad between now
Yeah,
and then.
yeah, you did. Yeah.
It was,
Wow.
a lot of personal things happened, and
Yeah,
just
for
like
sure.
I bought a house and everything, like
Yeah.
in the middle of making All the Planets Have Aligned, which might have been the dumbest thing I ever did.
Wow.
Not the buying the house part, but like scheduling
Sure.
the studio time around that.
A whole global pandemic that happened.
Yeah.
That happened a couple years later. But there was nothing I could do about that.
That whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing. That was the thing too. Like when the first time I heard these demos and when Brynen made them, is we had COVID, Like it was when
Yeah,
me and Brynen first had COVID the first time. We had it the same exact time. And so I remember him calling me. He's like, I'm going to be making the demo for the next record. So the first time I heard these songs was sitting in this room right now, and I had COVID and listening to them. And then, literally years later, it being finally done. So it's been like quite a process of just the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely the longest I think we've made to take a record, to make one, for sure.
Oh yeah, by far.
Yeah, by far.
We were used to, like Planets was done in like 5 days, like production.
Yeah, what would have been the longest? What, 2 probably?
2? No, 2 was like maybe 12 recording sessions. So
maybe the first one then.
Yeah, probably just because I was so. Me, Dane, and Jason were just so young at the time.
Yeah.
We just didn't know how to make records back then, which is why that record, sounds the way it does, but it has a charm. Because I was literally like 20, 21 years old making that.
Wow.
Back when I had more hair. And, back in the Mesozoic era.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you guys, do you prefer the studio or playing live? Which you guys each of you, which is your preference?
Live, beyond the shadow of a doubt. Live. Although I love the studio.
Yeah.
I think depending on what, you know what I mean? Making records is one of my favorite things to do. I absolutely, positively love recording and making records. Partially because it's a thing that lasts. It's a thing that, will last X number of years. But playing live is also super special, too, because those things only happen once. Those special moments only happen that one time. So that's also special magic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, it's like, again, it's like, it's approach for me. Like Dave was saying, the live aspect is like, that's only happening now. But while the record, like, for example, for me, making this record was so cool for me because usually I'm so clinical about the way I come up with the parts and execute them. And just because of the way we did things this time, it was more like a live situation for me because it was the first time I was playing these songs with Dave. And like then, I had my parts and I worked them out with Brynen. But then when I got Dave in the studio and then we were bouncing ideas off each other and just seeing how that worked, it was almost like, what I get from the live thing. So it was a really nice marriage for me and the two beautiful aspects of both of those situations.
Yeah, we definitely talked about a lot of kick drum patterns, that's for sure.
That's why the basic tracks were just so good, The thing I tell people, and I'll give it back to you, Jordan, in a moment, but it's like I always tell people, this is the bass and drum performance of the century. and I say that without hyperbole. It's like, I do my thing, but like, you got to check out these guys. These guys are cooking.
Yeah, Dave, it was like I said, it's like I got to thank you and Shane. You guys pulled something out of me on this record that would not have been there if you weren't involved. So it's like, for me, like it was just such a great thing to like they got the best out of me. So I couldn't have done it without them for sure.
I guess I am the conduit for allowing the whole thing to happen.
Yeah, but you and I have worked together for over 10 years now, so it's like I know what that is, and it's like with the addition of Dave, like it was just such a breath of fresh air and just a whole different way of doing things. So, and like I said, just the way he would come up, be like, what if we did this here? Like, what if we did that? What if we did an F minor 7 here? Like things like that, that we didn't see coming. He's great at that. F
minor 7.
Yeah, so it's like,
Those are some of my favorite parts.
That's what I mean. It's like, usually we were in, and I think, Brynen, you'll agree with me on this. I think just because of the way we made the last records, like I said, we were much more clinical about what we were doing. because we had spent, months rehearsing these tracks down to the fill. And, I was like, okay, I'm going to go in and do exactly this. This time was not like that. I had a framework, but it was much more about the magic in the room, what we're doing with each other, instead of just so rigid in terms of what was being done. That's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
Biggest difference.
In a lot of ways, I think I prefer it that way nowadays, and probably moving forward, rather than like, orchestrating every little thing out,
there's a time and place for that, but like I think the results we got from just this, how we did it, was just they're it's proof is in the pudding. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
So
pudding.
As they say,
pudding. Yeah. Now I'm hungry. Now I want some pudding.
Ooh.
No, so I guess
fine.
Just how do you guys think that your time in the studio together making this album is going to translate into your live performances this summer? And also after that, where can your fans find you guys this summer?
I think the record, like Jordan said, it has a very live feel to it anyway, whereas like All the Planets Have Aligned was very much a studio production, and it sounds like a studio production. And I felt the same way about Mythology 3. Like that sounded very live to me, even though it's polished, it's very 70s, it's very but to me that's also a very live sounding record, like minimal overdubs and all that stuff. Like we obviously don't have a French horn player, so
right.
But in the studio you do.
Yeah.
But I think these songs will translate very well live, without all the studio, trickery that every album, tends to have. Anyone else want to?
I think just like I said, just because of the synergy that we had, working on it, I think that's going to carry over too. I mean, the little bit of live playing that we've done since we've done that was like that, and I think it's just going to continue to happen. Like I said, I think it's just it was kind of birthed there with the recording this album. I think it's just going to continue.
I think the hardest part for me is going to be remembering which parts are the weird parts.
Yeah, because there is still that strict composition thing to it. But
well, and also when we were recording, I mean, I think it was. Hold on, was it the droopy one? Where
gotcha.
I just started trying weird harmonies.
Yeah, you're just like, let me just try this.
I don't know. How about this one? Is that too weird? So I just don't remember. I don't know. Hold on. I think I do, but I don't know that I remember which weird ones I did.
Yeah, no,
I think it was like
in which order.
It was like parallel major thirds. That got really weird, and parallel tritones because the guitar's just doing the same thing, and then your bass just kind of keeps going up in interval. But just parallel.
So I think for one
minor
of them,
seconds.
I did up a major third each time, so it ended up being like, major third, then augmented. And I think for the other one, I did minor thirds each time, so it ended up being diminished over the course. But yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, it's almost like Coltrane changes, like the Coltrane key changes, like giant steps or whatever. It keeps moving up in a major third. But
I love that. Yeah, and then where can your fans find you guys this summer?
Yeah, we got a few things booked right now. The next thing, which should happen at the end of this month, is going to be like not necessarily a live stream, but my old amp tech, Jamie Simpson, over in Hopatcong, New Jersey. He's going to film us, and we'll do like a live stream, but with post production.
Sure. Nice.
So we'll get a little bit of a concert film. And, we'll probably make a concert album out of it, too, because content is king, baby.
Right.
I don't know if I'm content with that, but, yeah. I didn't know that would be part of the job description of being in a band in 2024, but
yeah.
I think I'm having fun with it, and I'm doing it in my own peculiar way.
You got to make it run. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the big one would be our record release show in July 12th over at Olives in Nyack, New York.
Awesome.
And that's going to have my friend and yours, the magnificent Mike Smith group opening up, as well as the also magnificent Tabitha Booth and her band opening.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, guys, that sounds so awesome. And Dave, Brynen, Jordan, I just thank you guys so much for joining me today to talk about the album. I had such a pleasure listening to it, and like you guys have been talking about, it's like I feel like I'm gonna have to listen to it like quite a few more times to really get into it. So yeah,
that's what we like to hear. Thank you for having us. It was great talking to you.
Of course.
Cool.
And guys, thank you all for watching. Guys, this is Mythology and their brand new album, The Story of Sound. It's on all streaming platforms, but they'd prefer if you bought the CD. Come on. They're from the 90s. You can support them. You guys are going to have those on your website soon, yeah?
Yeah, they'll be available at all the shows, and I'm sure I'll put a merch thing on the website at some point too. Because and might I reiterate, that's the only way you're going to know the actual story of sound.
True.
How to get people to buy CDs in 2024.
Tell them a story.
Yes, exactly.
on a physical product, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you guys, everybody, for watching. Again, this is Mythology, The Story of Sound, out everywhere. Check it out, and I'll see you next time.